Hi, and welcome everybody to today's MOOC. We're going to be talking today about Tricentis Tosca Analytics and requirements links. Today you have with you, so I'm Sarah Romero. I'm a training consultant here at Tricentis, and your main host today will be Elmer Pavlos, who is a product manager here. The topics we're going to be talking about are analytics and requirement linking. A few rules before we get started. Obviously, all of the audience members are muted during the session, but that does not mean that we don't want to hear from you. So for that reason, we have a question box. Please feel free to ask your questions. We'll answer as many as we can live, and questions that are relevant for more people, we will hold off till the end, where we will have a Q&A session. We apologize in advance if we can't answer all of your questions, but we will try to get to as many as possible. If you want to see the recordings of this MOOC after it's finished and previous MOOCs, please feel free to go to our website, tricentis.com/academy/MOOC. Okay, so I'm at this point going to hand over to Elmer, who's going to start with a bit of theory, so some concepts, get into a Tosca demonstration, and then we'll move on into a Q&A session. Okay, so Elmer?
Thanks, Sarah, for the introduction. So welcome, everybody, also from my side. So let's just jump into the topic. So let's start with some concepts. The first thing I want to talk about is Tosca Analytics, what it is all about, what the concept behind it is, and later in the demo you will see how it's working. So we are here in the theory of basically analyzing data and visualizing things. So we have like three major areas that we are interested in. The first thing is to what we are calling here analyze and optimize. So it is about using some historical data to optimize testing, to increase the defect detection rate, and to just optimize the test portfolio. The other one is like learn and adopt. Here it is all about real-time feedback to learn and respond to usage and to error detection and everything. And the third part, the last part here is the predict and automate. This is like predicting what can happen or potential risks that can arise. So, for example, to predict some issues, and also offer some automated resolution later. So this is the whole area that we are talking about. The first thing that we came up with is Tosca Analytics. That's our basic, our tool to basically show the data, to give you some information, to show some charts on these areas, and we will see later in the demo what's there. Just some words taken from the product vision of Tosca Analytics. What is the need that we're tackling here? The need is basically to get a quick and easy update of the most relevant testing KPIs, to just be able to make a statement about the status of the portfolio, about the status of testing, risk coverage, and all the KPIs that are of interest, without having any need to install Tosca or to log in to Tosca and to power up Tosca, just to have a possibility to get a quick and easy update. And the value that Tosca Analytics is actually delivering is to access those KPIs quickly, be able to look at it, share it anytime by any device. Some information regarding the technical architecture of Tosca Analytics. So it is basically a website that is running on the IIS, or that is hosted on the IIS. What it is doing is it is accessing a workspace or one or multiple workspaces via the REST API. It's grabbing the data from those workspaces and storing the data in what we call here a snapshot database. So this is just the database where we store the data that is collected from the workspace, because it's not just extracting data, there's also some data transformation already going on to store the numbers that are needed later. This is stored in the snapshot database, and the client just accesses the web page, which is running on the IIS server, and yeah, that's basically it. How to set up Tosca Analytics. So there is a Tosca server setup, which is not only able to install Tosca Analytics. So here you see what you can also install other components, DEX-related components, exploratory testing, license server, and all kinds of things. What we are focusing now is on is Tosca Analytics and the REST API. So Analytics, as we have seen in the previous slide, is requiring the REST API to being installed and running, and also it requires a database where the snapshots are stored. So the setup process is as follows. Here you select Tosca Analytics REST API, then HTTP or HTTPS, whatever you prefer. Then you can select the port, directory, of course, where it is installed to, then connection string to the database, and you can already, during the setup, select which workspaces you want to have in your Tosca Analytics installation that you want to see later. Of course, all this configuration can also be updated and changed later on, but it's already available during the setup to have a up and running Tosca Analytics once the setup is done. So this is not only focusing on Tosca Analytics as topic, so we have like certain level of details, or different level of details, or let's call it reporting layers within Tosca. So the main point is that Tosca Analytics is giving you a high level overview over your portfolio. You can view multiple repositories or multiple workspaces in Tosca Analytics. It offers you a view on requirement section plus linked or related issues, and also a view on the execution section. If you want to go into more detail, so like building test cases or running executions, everything this is obviously done in the Tosca Commander. And if you want to go one level deeper and you say, okay, we want to have like a detailed report on certain objects that can be customized and is giving the exact numbers that you are interested in, then Tosca reporting is the right tool, I would say. So the reporting gives you, as already mentioned, a detailed report. You can trigger it on specific objects, you can cover specific use cases, and so on. So this is meant as some information on when to use which part of Tricentis Tosca. So that's it basically regarding the theory for Tosca Analytics. So now let's briefly talk about the requirement links. So why are we coming up with this? It is often required to have different views on requirements and requirement sets, and to view the things from different angles or different perspectives. One example that we are also having internally ourselves, for example, assume that there are several or multiple agile teams, and each team is working on their products, on their product components, on their features and everything, and they deal with their own requirement sets. And then there is a guy that is the manager or the engineering or product manager, whatever, and is interested in a view over all the requirement sets of all teams or of a certain subset of teams. And with the requirement links, it is possible to grab all those requirement sets and build a risk-based view on top of those requirement sets. So what you can do is you can use requirement sets and link them to other requirement sets, and of course weight them as usual in Tosca. One more thing that we introduced when working on the requirement links is that starting with Tosca 10.3, the auto calculation of values in the requirement section is disabled by default. Why are we doing that? Because if the structure gets bigger and bigger, especially if you link the requirement sets to other requirement sets, calculating all the values that can be displayed or that are of interest can just simply take a while. So that's why we turned it off by default. Of course, you get some information that they are actually turned off, that they are out of sync, and how to update them. Of course, if you're not happy with this, it is also possible to switch back to the previous behavior, so to turn on the auto calculation again. One other really cool thing that I want to mention is, and also want to show later on, is that a fuzzy search is available for linking any object within the commander to requirements. So you can trigger it on requirement sets and requirements, and it will just give you all the objects that can potentially be linked. And via fuzzy search, you can quickly find them and easily link them. So that's it actually from the theory part. So let's continue with the demo part. So for this, I will just switch back to Tosca. So I already opened the workspace here, which is showing our web shop. So what we're having here is some requirements and requirement sets, and you immediately see that you get an indication that there is something going on. So I will just check out all the whole structure to be able to show everything that is available. So here you see that there is a blue exclamation mark, a blue overlay, which tells you that the values are outdated, so they're not yet calculated. So if you want to calculate them, you can either, as the tooltip is saying, press F6, or you can just use this button here, which says update outdated values. You just click here, and every object below the point where you trigger it will be updated. You additionally get a message that it's possible that it can take a while until the calculation is done, because as mentioned before, if the structure gets deep, then yeah, it can just take some seconds, and if you click it, you get an information what is going on, and then all the values are there. So as I said, you can always switch back to the previous behavior. So here in the commando settings, there is a setting auto calculate requirements. This is per default set to off. If you set it to on and restart Tosca, then the behavior is as before. Okay, so the next thing is that I want to talk about the requirement linking. So let's have a look at those overview requirement sets. So let's look at the full demo web shop. So this is the full functionality of our demo web shop. And here you see the new icons. So here we already have some links. And what it does is, this is, for example, a link to the customer tasks requirement set. So here you see that those objects are actually just linked, and you cannot create any object below this one. But of course, you can always jump to the original requirement set and have a look at it. As you see here, you can of course use, as always, frequency and damage class, or just the weight, plug in the weight also for the links, because not the requirement sets are not always equally important depending on the way you view them. So for example, if you have a full overview of the web shop, the weighting is different as if you have, like here, all the order related functionalities. Here, of course, we have a different weighting than we have it here, for example. So it is important to always weight the requirement set at the place where it is actually used, and that's why the links can also be weighted. If you now, for example, want to link an additional requirement set here, because here we have the product shipment, for example, is not yet linked. So you can just use this button here, search and link, or Control T. And what it does, it opens a window, and then you can just plug in, type in product shipment, and it will give you all the objects that it's a fuzzy search, so it will give you all the objects where this string is actually appearing, and then you just click it, and it's there. And just plug in some weight, and that's it. Of course, if you modify the structure here, then the values are out of sync. So you see again the little overlay, and you see that the values are outdated because those are not accurate anymore because we did some manipulation. So we just update it again, and then we have the new modified risk coverage for our demo web shop. Of course, it is not only possible to link it via the fuzzy search. So let's remove the link and do it again. Of course, you can also just grab it and drag it over, and then you basically get the same result. So you can either do the linking manually or you can use the fuzzy search. One more thing that I want to mention is, because I was saying that you get all the objects with the fuzzy search that you can potentially link. So if you, for example, trigger the fuzzy search here, you, for example, get all the test cases, all the test sheets, everything that you can potentially link to a requirement or requirement set. So this is a really useful thing, and it allows quick and easy editing and updating of the requirement structure. So let's switch to Tosca Analytics. So we have the same structure that we have here set up in Tosca Analytics. So what you get after installing Tosca Analytics is also the Tricentis Tosca server landing page. This shows you all the applications and all the services that are installed. In this case, it is Tosca Analytics plus the REST API, because we said that the REST API is required for Tosca Analytics. So we just select Analytics, type in the login credentials, log in. And after logging in, you see that here we have the web shop. This is the repository that we were just looking at in the Commander. Here we also see that we have a second repository. The test instance of the web shop is also here. So you can, as mentioned in the theory part, you can add multiple repositories to Tosca Analytics, and you can access them with the same within the same Tosca Analytics installation. What you see here in Tosca Analytics, we are now on the requirement section. We have some numbers here that basically just tell us. So this is to start with. This is the view on all the repositories. So this is an aggregation of here the web shop and the test web shop, for example, and you see all the numbers that you already know from the Tosca Commander. So you see the coverage specified, the coverage executed, how many test cases are linked, how many are executed, and so on. You also see the automation degree of all your test cases that are considered here within the requirement section. So in this example, all the test cases that are linked to the requirements are actually automated. And what you see below here is this sunburst chart. This basically is a graphical representation of those two repositories. So you see that here this one corresponds to the web shop, and this one corresponds to the web shop test instance. And what it tells you is basically here you see that, for example, an area is red, so the customer tasks. There is some work to do because the tests are currently failing. Here we see that, for example, the handle product is already quite good. So there is already most of the risk covered with past test cases. So this basically shows you the web shop and all the requirement sets and requirements below. To give you an information which like a graphical overview on your testing status. And if you now select, for example, the customer tasks, then you see that here this rectangle is now selected, so it gets a thicker border, and we see that here the selected object, the customer tasks, has this execution state, and in the middle of this sunburst chart, it's always the overall execution state of everything that is here. In this case, both the test webshop and the webshop itself. So this is it for the overview page. Here we can also switch to the details page. Here you see the execution state, the current execution state again, and also a trend of the execution state. So here you see that it is red already for quite a while. We had some green popping up actually. If we drill into this, we see some more trends here. So here, for example, we had the first green execution results within the last data updates. So here you see like a trend of how the execution state is evolving and how the coverage is evolving. What you see below here is two charts. So one is called the power of the set, the other one the state of the set. The power of the set is basically showing the relation between the automation degree and the coverage specified. Why is this interesting? Here, the power of the set chart shows you the correlation between the automation degree and the coverage specified. And what it tells you is basically that you want to be up here in the right upper quadrant, because here you have a high automation degree and a high coverage specified. This means that you cover a lot of your business risk, then the coverage specified is high, and you have a high automation degree, which is also, of course, desired. And the same holds here for the state of the set. So this chart is quite similar. It is a relation between the execution status past and the amount of coverage that was already executed. So in this example, we have executed the full portfolio, so we have 100% coverage executed, everything is executed, but we only have less than 50% passed test cases, which is of course not optimal. So also here we want to push this bullet here into the right upper quadrant. You also see issues that are linked. So for example, here on this requirement login, we have an issue that changing password is not possible, for example. So you also see issues that are linked to that occur during the execution and that are linked to test cases that are considered here in the requirement set. One more thing that you can do here is you can export the current view as a PDF. So let's go back to the one where we had the issue attached. So if you trigger the export, you get a pop-up which asks you for regarding the page size, and then a PDF will be rendered on the server where Tosca Analytics is installed, which shows you on which object it was triggered. So here we triggered the report for the login. You see when the last data update took place, and of course when it was created. And the content of the PDF is actually everything you see also in Analytics. So you get the overview page with all the numbers, the sunburst chart, and also the detail charts on the details page, and all the linked issues. So in this way you can just print a PDF and get a report on, for example, open issues and execution states. So that's it for the requirement section. You can also have a view on the execution section of Tosca within Tosca Analytics. It's basically following the same path. So you have, again, you see on the main page the two repositories, and here you see all the execution lists that are present in the workspace. So in this case, we only have a small structure. We have 5 execution lists, and you basically see similar numbers. The major Difference is that those numbers are not risk-based, so they are similar to the ones that you see in the execution section of Tosca Commander. Again, you have the sunburst chart, which tells you shows you the execution state, and here on the details page you have a similar thing, also the current execution state plus the trend. Only one chart is missing, the power of the set is missing, because, as already mentioned, we do not have a risk assessment in the execution section, so that's why this chart is not here. So if for a comparison, we can just go back to the Tosca Commander and have a look at the execution section here. So you see we have the same execution list here, and the numbers are basically corresponding to the numbers that you are available here. And I was in the theory part, I was talking about the reporting layers. So here you see that, for example, Tosca Analytics just gives you an overview about what the current execution state is, about the execution degree, and about open issues, and so on. But for example, if you want to know exactly which test case failed where, and some more details, of course you can find all the details in the Tosca Commander. But for example, you can also use the reports to get like a detailed report on test case execution or requirement coverage. And for example, if we trigger a report here, you see that you can prepare some examples. For example, if we use this one, then we get a detailed report on which test case was failing, and again the coverage, and you see which test case was failing, which issues exist. So this is highly customizable, what you see in the report, and you can use this for a detailed use case based reporting, for example. Of course, the reporting is available for all Tosca components. So for example, also here in the requirement section, we can, for example, here just print a report which gives us an overview over the requirement set. Yes. Yeah, with some detailed numbers, some again customizable numbers and charts and reports. So that's it basically. For this, I want to hand over to Sarah again.
Okay, thank you, Elmer. This has been really helpful. We've gotten a lot of questions in the question box, so I have a few that I think would be helpful for everyone, if you could answer them.
Yeah, of course.
Great. So the first question that we have is, does Tosca Analytics also work on mobile devices?
The answer is yes. Tosca Analytics supports all the common browsers for desktop browsers, and also Android and iOS tablets and smartphones. So as mentioned in the theory part, it should basically run on any device.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, another question we got was, who can use Tosca Analytics? So I guess that means who has the rights, who has access to Tosca Analytics, and how is the user access handled?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. The user information is basically synced from the common repository. This means that every user that has access to Tosca in general, so can use the Tosca Commander basically, also has access to Tosca Analytics. So the users can use the same credentials as when they log into Analytics, in the Tosca Commander, sorry.
Okay, great. A question, so I guess depending on who's using it, it might be interesting to know whether the Tosca Commander installation is required in order to use Tosca Analytics.
No, a Tosca Commander installation is not needed on the machine where the user wants to use Analytics. So Tosca Analytics is a web-based application, and therefore it can be used independently of the Tosca Commander. it only requires a commander installation on the server, basically, because we need a workspace on the server where we grab the data from, but the users themselves do not need a commander installation.
Okay, thank you. And the last question I think we'll answer is how does the data update work for Tosca Analytics? So is it a live update?
So the data update is done on a regular interval. So it can be either configured to be a time of day when the data update is triggered, or a regular interval in minutes. So for example, if you want to have a data update overnight, for example, to have a fresh view in the morning, then it can be scheduled for overnight update. If you want like a more frequent update, you can set it to an interval in minutes. And what is more, the data update and the user update that was actually covered with one of the previous questions can be triggered independent of each other. So the user update, for example, can be configured to happen on a shorter notice, because if this would also, for example, happen overnight, then users that want to use analytics and were just created in the common repository would need to wait until the next day. So if the user pulling happens more frequently, then they can quickly have access.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Elmer. Maybe we'll now switch back to the slides.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so now thank you guys all for attending this MOOC. I hope that you've learned a lot. We would also like to invite you to participate in our next MOOC, which will be taking place in about 3 weeks' time. The topic of that MOOC is the testing of S/4HANA with the newest SAP Fiori interface. So you'll learn how to automate SAP Fiori based on the SAP order-to-cash process. So we're really looking forward to that one, and we hope you can join. As usual, we'll have 2 sessions, one in the morning in Central European Standard Summertime, and one in the afternoon as well. Before you leave, please make sure to complete the feedback, the survey, which should be, you can find it at the bottom of your screen there. It should be one of the little widgets. So please feed back to us and give us your opinion on our MOOC. Okay, if you have any more questions and you want to follow up on any of these topics, there are a few avenues that you can follow. The first would be if you have any technical questions, please feel free to contact support. So that's support@tricentis.com. If you have any questions about our training or the Academy or the MOOCs, you can contact the Tricentis Academy directly at academy@tricentis.com. We also have a wealth of knowledge in our knowledge base on the support portal, so that's support.tricentis.com. And we also have a manual online, so if you have any more questions, you want to dig into documentation, you can follow the link on the website. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, you can view all of the recordings from previous MOOCs at tricentis.com/academy/MOOC. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Elmer.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yep, and we hope you had a nice time watching our session. Hope to see you next time.